Hello, and welcome to the fourth episode of this series in which I am showcasing my new tabletop role-playing game called Parable. My name is Jacob Motl. Now, before we jump into the story, I want to make a quick note about XP and character progression. As of the end of the last episode, Quinn has 11 XP. In the current beta version of the Parable rules, once your character has 10 XP, they can either take a feat, or they can grow and increase their rank by 1. I could choose to spend the 10 XP for Quinn to increase his rank, and that would increase one of his 5 primary attributes by 1. However, Quinn has left off at a very dangerous situation. So for now, we're going to hold off on increasing his growth, increasing his rank, until this next leg of the story plays out. With that said and done, let's dive back in. The granite door of the mausoleum shuts with a thud, and Quinn is left alone, in the dark, on top of the wall of the cemetery, crouched amongst the ruin and the rubble of a partially collapsed tower. A desolate breeze rustles the trees and the foliage in the surrounding landscape. The bone chimes down in the courtyard gently clang in a soft and subtle breeze. The dim light from the crescent moon above shines down on Quinn's face. He is wide-eyed, worried, and unsure of what to do. His new companion Darren has been taken into the mausoleum by 5 cloaked figures. Quinn does not know who these figures are or what they want, but he does know that they have some connection to Eldronoth, Lord of the Abyss, the very being that the Amethyst Order and Brother Quinn have sworn to protect the world against. Brother Quinn is now at a crossroads. He's not sure if he should go save his new companion, who he has only known for about half of a day. Does he go into the mausoleum if he can to save Darren? Or does he flee like Darren told him to do? And I would say Quinn is compelled to go into the mausoleum to learn more about who they are and what they're doing, maybe what their motives are, and how they are connected to Eldronoth. Maybe they aren't at all. That could be a possibility. But since they're in this place, with all of the dark and foreboding iconography, there is strong indication that they are followers of Eldronoth in some way. So Quinn is very much struggling on what to do. Quinn also is in a remote section of the wilderness. He's kind of a stranger in a strange land sort of a situation. The only contact that he has is back in Azabosh or in Darren, who was just taken. So, kind of a sticky situation here. I think what I'll first have Quinn do is to make a focus roll looking out on the horizon, kind of a 360, to see if he can spot anything, any place of interest. Before I make the roll, I will set up some parameters. If he gets a critical setback or a setback, he doesn't see anything of note, especially since it is night. If he gets a partial success, he'll see 1 point of interest, and I will roll the directional die for that. If he gets a success, it'll be 2 points of interest, and a critical success will be 3 points of interest. So now I will make that focus roll. Ooh, alright. Critical success, natural 20. So he sees 3 points of interest. So the first one, I will roll the directional die. I got a 2, which is to the northeast. Now for what the location might be, I am using the 5 Leagues from the Borderlands 3rd edition, specifically the Unexplored Locations table, and Natively, that is a D100 roll, but I'm actually going to modify it. There are 11 total possibilities of locations on that table, and instead of using a D100, I'm going to omit the 11th one, the 11th option, and just roll a D10. So we'll see what I get. Okay, a small hamlet can be seen, some little yurts and huts with maybe some smoke rising up. That is to the northeast. And I'm going to roll a d4 to see how many miles that hamlet is. Okay, 4 miles out. And for the second location, point of interest, the direction, an 8, so that is to the northwest. And I will do the same thing, roll the d10, kind of modifying that unexplored locations table. The result is trouble brewing. You find clear signs of enemy troop movements. Okay, so I would interpret that as Quinn seeing, of course it's night, so he's not going to see details, but he sees some sort of humanoid, I don't know, mob, a group of some sort moving through the wilderness. And how many miles out is that? Another d4 roll. Okay, 3 miles out. And quickly I'm going to have Quinn make another focus roll to see if he can tell which way they're moving. Okay, a 9 was rolled plus his 1 for focus, so a partial success. And I will roll, I would say for that, he can't tell specifically which way they're moving, which of the kind of 8 cardinal directions, but I think I will roll a d4 for a general northeast southwest. Okay, so they would be moving east. I rolled a 2. And for the third and final point of interest that Quinn can see, first the direction, a d8. Okay, due east. I rolled a 3. And now, unexplored location. There is an old ruin. How many miles out? 2 miles out. And now let's have Quinn make a focus roll to see if he can discern anything about what the old ruins might be. Okay, an 8 plus 1 for his focus would bring him to a 9. And I'm going to have him spend 1 XP to bump it up to a 10 for a partial success. So he is able to discern something about the ruins. Again, it's nighttime, so it's hard to see, but there's a little bit of moonlight. And for this, I am using the GM's Miscellany Wilderness Dressing, the Ruins Dressing table. It is a D100 table. And let's see what I roll. 38. Interesting. It says the symbol of an evil deity is seen. So that's an easy one to interpret. Quinn looking out east to these old ruins, squinting, he can see and just barely make out that the ruins look to be some sort of a temple, and there is kind of a steeple, and on top of the steeple is a metal icon of Eldranoth. And now upon seeing that, Quinn grows even more uneasy. He is starting to feel like he is very much in over his head, alone in the wilderness and in this land that is still very sympathetic to Eldranoth, at least in this area of the region. And he also knows that if these likely worshippers of Eldranoth find Quinn, who is from the Amethyst Order, which is sworn to keep Eldranoth, his followers, and the threat of darkness at bay and out of the world, then Quinn's life is certainly going to end. Quinn keeps looking out at the different points of interest that he sees, and he definitely feels the conflict within him. Do I stay? Do I try to rescue Darren from the mausoleum? Do I try to brave the wilderness and maybe find the main road and leave Darren behind? Do I go and get help? Do I try to find someone willing to come back here to save Darren? And Quinn considers that if he were to leave, it would have to be through the wilderness, not on any sort of a path or a trail, because the only one that he knows of is the dirt footpath, the way that they arrived at this walled cemetery. And that leads kind of south and to the east a little bit and then loops back up. It kind of winds through the wilderness. So if he were to leave and head straight towards one of the places that he sees on the horizon, he would definitely have to brave the wilderness, and he would not be on any sort of a path, which also presents the issue of becoming lost. So Quinn considers for several minutes, looking down at the mausoleum, looking back out on the wilderness, looking back down on the mausoleum again, so on and so forth, for several minutes. And finally, he does decide that if he's going to survive, he will need a guide. And so he must be brave and enter the mausoleum if he can to try to save Darren. In the quiet of night, with the gentle breeze blowing through the foliage of the surrounding landscape, the gentle yet ominous clanging of the bone chimes echoing throughout the courtyard below, Quinn decides to climb back down the vines cautiously and as quietly as he can. So I will have him make an agility roll to be quiet while climbing down. He got a 10, and his agility is -1, so that is a 9. That is a setback. So he tries to get a good grip, a good foothold, and he starts to make his way down, but about a fourth of the way down, he slips. He loses his grip and falls to the ground below. He falls probably some 30 feet or so. So I'm going to roll a d6 for how much damage he takes when he kind of falls on his back. Okay, only 1 point of damage as he lands on maybe a soft patch of grass, but certainly makes a noise. And he lays there for several moments, trying to collect himself after having the wind knocked out of him. And he's listening to make sure that the mausoleum doors don't open, that no one heard him, as far as he can tell. After about a minute, he starts to get up from this patch of grass that he's in, and having collected himself, he kind of gets his bearings. No one, from what he can tell, is in the courtyard, and so he tries to sneak his way up alongside the gargoyles of the mausoleum to the door, and we'll have him make another agility roll. Alright, 19 -1, 18, so that is a success. He is able to not make a sound, easily makes his way to the entrance of the mausoleum, and standing very tall in front of him is a large, very dark gray, if not black, granite door. From what he can tell, there are no handles to open the door, so he's unsure at first on how it opens. He wasn't able to see any of the cloaked figures, how they managed to open it. Now, what exactly does the door look like, or what features might it have? I'm using the GM's Miscellany Dungeon Dressing, looking at the D100 table for doors, dressings, and features. Alright, 62. So Quinn looks up at the door to see if maybe there's some handles up above, and in doing so, he sees above his head, in chalk, there is a huge eye drawn on the door. And from what he can tell in the dim moonlight, this chalk is the same color as the arrows drawn on the trees as they were making their way to this cemetery. It could be a coincidence, but he has the gut feeling that the arrows on the trees and this eye were probably drawn by the same group of individuals. Most likely the cloaked figures, or someone who is in connection with them. So, not seeing any handle that is prominent on the door, Quinn is going to search around the frame of the door and probably even the gargoyle statues that are beside the door on either side to see if there's some sort of a latch or a lever to open it. So I'm going to have him make a focus roll. 13 plus 1, 14. I'm going to have him spend 2 XP to bump it up to a success, a 16. In searching around the door for some sort of a lever, Quinn notices that one of the hands of the gargoyle statues can be rotated. He rotates the hand and hears a click, and just as he does, the granite doors of the mausoleum open. Quinn then ducks behind the next statue over, just in case any of the cloaked figures rush out after hearing the door open. So I will have him make an agility roll to hide. 17 minus 1 is 16, so he is able to duck behind and conceal himself. And do any of the cloaked figures come rushing out, hearing that the door is opened? We'll say that it's likely, especially when no other cloaked figures are entering or exiting. So an 80, yes. Let's see, how many? We'll roll a d6 to see how many cloaked figures, because Quinn knows that there are at least 10 in the mausoleum currently, or there should be. So a d6. Okay, 5 cloaked figures emerge from the mausoleum, and Quinn can tell that they look puzzled as to what opened the door or who opened the door. Do the cloaked figures, do they notice that the statue, the hand of the statue, is turned? We'll say it is likely, because they would probably check that first after looking around to see who's there, if anyone. Yeah, so they do notice. They're standing right just a handful of feet away from where Quinn is concealing himself behind the statue. And a couple of the cloaked figures come up to the mechanism statue and see that the hand is turned. And the two of them whisper something unintelligible to Quinn. They kind of motion to the other 3 that the hand is turned on this statue. So the 5 of them now, are they going to search the grounds again? That is likely. Yeah. No, they're not. Okay. So instead, all 5 of them retreat back into the mausoleum. And as Quinn sees the last cloak disappear into the door, a rush of either bravery or stupidity washes over Quinn, and he's going to try to quickly dart, as sneakily as he can, into the mausoleum as well before the doors shut. So I'm going to have him make an agility roll. Oh, okay. So a 3 minus 1 for his agility. So he tries to make his way, kind of unconceal himself, come out of his hiding spot, but he gets caught up and the doors shut before he's able to make his way through. But Quinn now knows how to open the door. Taking a page out of Darren's book, Quinn finds a small piece of stone and goes back to the mechanism statue, turns the hand, and this time goes to the side of the mausoleum and hides. And he darts around the corner just as the doors finish opening, and he hears the cloaked figures coming out. And since he's hiding around the corner, he's not sure how many emerge. But he's going to take the stone, and Quinn is going to attempt to throw the stone as far as he can across the cemetery. With this throw, Quinn is trying to go for power rather than accuracy. He just wants it lobbed as far away from the mausoleum as he can get it. So I am going to have this be a might roll, which is, for Quinn, his might is -3, and we'll see how this goes. Okay, a 15 -3, so a 12, which is a partial success. Quinn takes the stone and just lobs it as far as he can. I would say it goes probably about halfway. Yeah, about halfway through the cemetery, and it hits one of the headstones, which gets the cloaked figure's attention. Quinn peers out from the side of the mausoleum to see the greater cemetery. I'm going to roll a d6. He sees that there are only 2 cloaked figures this time, and they are over by where the stone hit the grave marker. Now, since there are only 2 of them, Quinn is going to take the opportunity. He quickly goes to the mechanism statue and turns the hand so that the door shuts. He then turns around to face the cloaked figures, who are now racing over to him. They see him, and Quinn is going to attempt to cast his calm spell on both of them. For the first one, he's going to make a casting roll, which is a +3. 4 is what he rolled, +3, so that is a 7 for the first one, and he's going to use 3 XP to bump it up to a 10, which is then a partial success. That cloaked figure who was running is now at a slow walking pace as Quinn attempts to cast Calm again on the second one. Okay, 16, so that is a success. So that one, the second cloaked figure as well, slows, kind of halts in their tracks, and they are no longer intent on capturing or harming Quinn. Quinn cautiously approaches them and asks in common, "Can you understand me and what I am saying?" And now a D100 roll. Let's see if they understand what Quinn is saying. I would say it's probably certain that they do. Yes, a 32. So they know common, and both of the cloaked figures nod and say, "Yes, we understand what you are saying. What is it that you want here?" To which Quinn replies, "Well, my apologies for the intrusion. I have been lost in the woods, and I came upon this place. The sun was setting, and I just needed a place to camp for the night." So now I think it would be appropriate for Quinn to have to make a charisma roll, considering that the cloaked figures just had some sort of an intruder and took Darren captive. They are likely going to be on edge about unwanted guests and others intruding upon kind of this place. So a charisma roll for Quinn, and he has the personable racial trait, which grants a +1 charisma versus non-hostile creatures, which would be both of these cloaked figures. So let's see. Okay, an 18 +2 for his charisma plus the 1 for personable is a 21, which is a success. So with that, I would say Quinn plays off what he's saying in a very innocent and believable way, and to which one of the cloaked figures says in reply, "You better leave this place and be on your way. We don't take too kindly to unwanted guests." And Quinn catches a very subtle smirk and a snort from the other cloaked figure. And at that, Quinn asks the figure who snorted, "By the way, I had a companion of mine scouting ahead. He seemed to wander off in this direction, and that's why I followed him. Have you seen him at all? He's about your height, but he's nowhere to be found. And now let's see how they answer. It is probably a slim chance that they are going to tell the truth about having just taken Darren captive. An 11. So they say to Quinn, "No, we haven't seen anyone this evening. He might be lost in the woods or something." Quinn keeps his cool and just takes a breath and smiles politely. Says, "Well, thank you for your time. I will certainly go out into the wilderness to try to find him, if you don't mind showing me the way out." And the two cloaked figures just kind of shrug and turn to lead Quinn to the front gate of this cemetery. And just as the cloaked figures turn their backs on Quinn, he takes his quarterstaff and hits one of them behind the knee. So I'm going to make a melee roll, and I would say, since he's getting the surprise on them, that he has advantage. So I will roll two 20-sided dice, and whichever result is higher will be the result that I use. Now keep in mind that Quinn has a -4 for his melee attribute. So the higher result is 18, -4 is 14, so a partial success, and the impact die as well is a 5. Quinn, easily enough, is able to sweep one of the cloaked figures off of his feet, hitting him behind the knee, and he just falls to the ground in agony. The other cloaked figure turns around and brandishes a dagger, starts swinging it at Quinn as Quinn tries to dodge out of the way. It is apparent to Quinn now that his calm spell is ended on both of them since he has attacked them. So I will have Quinn make an agility roll to dodge. The dagger swipes. Ooh. Nope, that is a 2. So a setback, and Quinn will take damage from the impact of the dagger, which is 3. Quinn has armor of 0, so he will take the full 3 damage. And Quinn is now going to attempt to cast Calm again on this cloaked figure that's right up on him. Alright, 15 plus 3 for casting is 18. So as this cloaked figure is waving his dagger in front of Quinn and cutting him up a bit, Quinn casts his Calm spell, which hits the cloaked figure, immediately drops his dagger, and it's as if the cloaked figure is in some sort of a serene trance. He forgets what he's doing, and he just kind of stands there as if he wasn't just trying to brutally attack and capture Quinn. Quinn, seeing that the assault is now paused for the moment, he looks over to the first cloaked figure, who is still on the ground, just clutching their shin. Quinn slowly gets up and, taking his quarterstaff, walks over to that cloaked figure who's writhing in pain on the ground. And he takes it, cracks him right over the head. The cloaked figure laying on the ground below goes limp as a small pool of blood starts to form in the dirt at Quinn's feet. The other cloaked figure standing there, seeing this, starts in again on a fit of hostility and lunges at Quinn. Quinn tries to roll out of the way. Another agility roll. 4, so that is a setback. The cloaked figure tackles Quinn to the ground and starts beating him as Quinn takes 1 point of damage. And in response, Quinn is going to use his quarterstaff to get this cloaked figure off of him. So I would say Quinn isn't really attacking the cloaked figure. He's more of trying to use a tool to get him off. So I'll say that this is a might roll. 9 minus 3 is a 6. I think I'll use 4 of Quinn's XP to bump it up to a 10 for a partial success. So after a few moments of struggling, Quinn is able to use his quarterstaff to pry this cloaked figure off of him. And the cloaked figure rolls to the side as Quinn quickly rolls in the opposite direction to get away from the cloaked figure. And in doing so, they both notice, glittering in the dim moonlight, the dagger laying on the ground. Both of them at the same time lunge for it. Quinn will make an agility roll. A 4 minus 1 is a 3, so a setback. They both lunge for the dagger, but the cloaked figure gets to it first and immediately swipes at Quinn, who takes 1 point of damage. At this point, Quinn has several open wounds and slices on his face and on his arms. Again, he's going to attempt to cast Calm on this cloaked figure. 5 plus 3 is 8, and he's going to spend 2 XP to bump it up to a 10 for a partial success. So Quinn casts the Calm spell pretty much point blank on this cloaked figure. And once again, the cloaked figure relaxes, quits swiping at Quinn, but this time he does not drop his dagger. Quinn, panting, he says to the cloaked figure, "Let's quit fighting. We don't need to do this. Give me the dagger." And I will have him make a charisma roll. His charisma is +2, and he has the personable, now that this character is no longer hostile. So an 18 plus 3 is 21 for a success. And the cloaked figure, panting as well, just nods in agreement and hands Quinn the dagger. He quickly stuffs it in with his other equipment, out of reach from the cloaked figure. And it is just then, just as the dust settles for another probably brief moment, that the granite doors of the mausoleum open, and 5 more cloaked figures come rushing out. They see one cloaked figure dead in the dirt, a pool of blood around his head, and another cloaked figure catching their breath, leaning against one of the gravestones, as well as little Quinn, who is standing between the body and the panting cloaked figure. Quinn immediately tries to make a run for it out through the main gates. I'll have him make an agility roll. Alright, critical success, natural 20. So as the 5 cloaked figures emerging from the mausoleum begin to chase him, he bolts, and thanks to the Calm spell, the cloaked figure that is just a few feet from him does not pursue, and he is able to escape the mausoleum out into the wilderness, with 5 of the cloaked figures in pursuit. And that is where this episode will end. So for XP, Darren wasn't part of this episode, so we can't update his at all. But for Quinn, he survived this episode, so he will get 1 XP for that. And looking at strands, technically at the very end he did escape the cemetery. I would say that is going to be 2 XP. And for confronting a couple of the cloaked figures and being brave, he also was able to take 1 down. I would say that is going to be another, we'll say 3 XP. So in total for this episode, Quinn has gained 6 XP at the end for strands and awarded XP, which is a good segue into strands. We can cross off escape the cemetery, since we got XP for that. We didn't learn much about the cemetery. We didn't learn about the cloaked figures. And we did not save Darren from the mausoleum. We can keep all of those up, or active, but none of those were accomplished in this episode. But we can add, since Quinn is now being pursued by a group of 5 of the cloaked figures, we can add We'll call this strand Shake the Cloaked Figure's Pursuit. Because I'm guessing Quinn doesn't want to be captured by them. Unless, of course, it becomes part of his plan to rescue Darren, but I guess we will find out on the next episode. Tune in next week for the next installment of this adventure. Thank you for watching.